Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wrestling Freak #1 Wrestling Podcast, bringing you all the latest news in professional wrestling. I am your host, I am Wrestling Freak #1, and on this show, what I wanted to cover was how to book right a good professional wrestling storyline or angle. So there's a lot that goes into this, and I really just kind of wanted to cover the basics. Now, this doesn't reflect anything that WWE is doing now. I'm not trying to say that any era of wrestling is better than any other era of wrestling, but this is what, in my opinion, and I just want to stress that, in my opinion, makes a good storyline in professional wrestling. A lot of storylines recently really haven't revolved around certain elements that storylines in the past, say, during the 15 years ago, during the Attitude Era, have. Not saying that the Attitude Era is any better or worse than this era. Not saying that the Golden Age or the Golden Era, or some people call it the Hogan Era, is better or worse. I'm just saying that there are things that they don't focus on in professional wrestling, and this isn't just WWE, but in professional wrestling in general, that they used to focus on then. First thing that you should always have when writing a storyline or an angle or booking, by the way, it's not called booking anymore, it's called writing now. We don't have bookers, we have writers. Is having 2 guys or 3 guys or 4 guys or 6 guys who, hopefully not 6 in one storyline, that's a bit much, but 2 or 3 or 4 guys tops that work well off each other. And you want to have guys in there who have a good chemistry, and you want to have guys who are good, strong characters, and you want to basically take or try to, in general, take your top guys and have them work with each other. This is not saying that you can't take younger guys and try to build them up and try to make them stars by having them work against guys who are already established. So, you can take, I don't know, I'm just going to use an example, a Seth Rollins, and have him work with a John Cena or Randy Orton, and establish Seth Rollins by having him work with those guys. Not saying you can't do that, but if you want a top draw, and this is what we're talking about right now, is a draw. I'm going to use this term a lot. And basically, if you don't know what a draw is, it's making money. That's essentially, what a draw is making money. So you want to work with guys who are a top draw. Right now we're talking like a Cena, Orton, Taker, Lesnar, those guys. Okay, 15 years ago we might be talking about Rock, Austin. Okay, so for this example we'll use Rock and Austin because those are 2 guys who, when they were in their prime, when they were at the top of their game, were 2 guys that were at the same time top draws in WWF. We'll just say WWF. We all know it's WWE. Okay, but for some of you younger fans, we're talking about WWE when we say WWF. Okay, and hopefully you're watching this, and hopefully you go back and you'll watch that feud between Austin and Rock. It was phenomenal. So you had Austin and Rock, and they were both at the top of their game, and they were both top draws, and it was kind of like you couldn't really put one above the other at any given time, because even though Rock was a huge merchandise guy, even though Austin was a huge merchandise guy, so was Rock. So it was kind of like both of them were about here, maybe Austin here. So you want to take 2 guys that work well with each other. You want to take 2 characters that work well with each other. Another time that they did this was with Austin and Bret Hart. and they did the double switch. Basically, they wanted to turn Austin face, tweener, really, but they wanted to turn him face, and they wanted to turn Bret heel. So they did a double switch, and that was another time that they had two guys who were top draws, and maybe at that time Bret was a top draw and Austin was like here, maybe, you know, Bret here and Austin about here. But it brought Austin up here. Something like that. Anyway, so you can elevate guys, and WWE is doing a good job with that right now. They're elevating Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt, and hopefully Cesaro sometime in the future. But basically, that's what you want to do. You want to take two guys that are top draws. Okay, now you have two guys who are top draws. You have two guys who are big names. Okay, now you have to have a good story. Now I'm going to go into what makes a good wrestling storyline. Well, there are a lot of things. The most common one is, you have the belt and I want it. That's a little dated. And then you have more complicated storylines. You have things where family members are involved, and you have things where you screwed my brother's wife type of storylines. Those sometimes work, sometimes they don't. My general philosophy is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Not saying that you have to have the most basic storyline in the entire world. Not saying, you know, that you have the belt and I want it, which is a lot of ECW storylines, a lot of the original ECW, you know, back in 97, 98, where basically you have the belt, I want it. But you want to have two guys who could tell a good story, not just in the ring when you have that big payoff match, but you want to have two guys who are also good mic workers. You want to have two guys who can cut good promos on each other and who could talk crap about each other, and no matter what the storyline is about, you know, if it is, you screwed my brother's wife's cousin's half-sister, whatever, you can do that, and that's fine. But I prefer simple storylines. Ring of Honor is pretty good at doing this, but you don't need to overcomplicate. One example of a storyline that was very, very overcomplicated was Claire Lynch in TNA. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just, you know what? Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, good. If you know what I'm talking about, that's exactly what you're doing right now. Okay. So it was overcomplicated, and it was not a good storyline. But at the same time, storylines can be too simple, so maybe you want to have a little bit of a balance. You want to have a storyline that's has depth, but not too much depth. Okay, so you want to have two guys cutting promos on each other, and hot. Okay, like hot, you know, promos. Okay, scathing promos. Okay, good mic work. Good mic work is really what I'm trying to imply here. Okay, so now you have all of those things. Okay, here's the big part. Don't do the payoff match too soon. Build. My favorite phrase is, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Because if you just want to get to that finish line in a story, in an angle, it's not going to be memorable. The Kurt Angle thing, going back, I think it was maybe around 2000, 2001, with him and Trips and Steph, was the perfect example of them. It's called pacing. You want good pacing. So it's hard to explain exactly what makes good pacing. You just kind of, I guess, have to go with the crowd. But if it's a draw, meaning, you know, it's something that makes money, your first thing should always be, rule number 1, is it a draw? Rule number 2, is it a draw? If it's not a draw, you shouldn't be doing it. If it's not making money, you should not be doing it. Don't do a wrestling storyline for any other reason than to make money. That's it. That's number one. That's it. I could pretty much sum up the last few minutes of this video, or however much time we have, with these words. Aim to make money. That's really it. If you're going out to make money, and you're not doing it to show another company that you're better than them, like they did in TNA with VKM, Voodoo Kin Mafia, where they just pretty much copied everything that WWE was doing. It was awful. Okay, so if you're out just to make money, that's it. Just make money. Jim Ross, great mind, one of the greatest ever, said, I don't care who you boo, I don't care who you cheer, as long as there's a butt every 18 inches. Well, I'd like to add to that. That's a great phrase, but I'd like to add to that. And I would like to add, as long as there's a butt every 18 inches and every once in a while they get up to go buy merchandise. In the concession stands. Merchandise. You have two guys who are top draws. Push their merch. And this goes for indie promoters too. Indie promoters can use this also. So don't do the blow off match too soon. Build. Don't overly build. Use some common sense, but at the same time, you want to get there, but you don't want to get there too quickly. Okay, so now you're going to do the big payoff match. Okay, maybe you've done a couple of matches already that were didn't have legitimate finishes. Maybe there wasn't a 1, 2, 3 in any of these matches. Maybe you did a couple of matches where there was a schmoz between these guys, and that's okay. That's okay because you're building towards that one match. You just don't want to do that too much where the fans get sick of seeing these guys, and you don't want to do it too soon where it gets to the point where it's like, oh, I was really enjoying that, and it's over already. Oh, well, that was kind of quick. So if you have, if you're doing a face heel feud, which is the most typical, obviously, face feuds sometimes work. Heel feuds don't really work, unless one of those guys is, maybe you're going to turn one of those guys a face in the end of the match, or maybe you're going to do a double switch like they did with Bret and Austin, or double turn. But get there. Don't get there too soon. Don't rush it. Don't take too long. Have the blow-off match be the blow-off match. Have that match be it. For now, I guess, maybe you could say. If you want him to work again, later, you can. But you want to save all the best stuff for that match. You want to save all the best spots for that match. I'd like to do another video on this. If there's anything more that I feel like I need to say, I will do another video on this. My next video is probably going to cover Kevin Owens, aka Kevin Steen, who is debuting in NXT next week. I'm probably going to be covering the Chikara Tomorrow Never Dies pay-per-view, which is Saturday. And there's probably going to be some other stuff in the works. So, once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope this was helpful if you're a fan or if you're a promoter. And until next time, I am Wrestling Freak #1 saying thank you for watching and good night.